Everything was a threat to me.
Why was I a threat?
Not you, the world. I had a dream and I was a...
Hey guys, and welcome back to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys about Deeper Truth, where we delve deeper into the truth about today's topic, which is Will Smith and Janet Herbert's beef for 30 years. Guys, if you want to see more content like this, you're going to make sure you like, you share, you subscribe to this channel, and you click on that bell button for a notification of the what uploads, baby. We appreciate you. Stay locked and stay loaded. And don't forget as well, guys, you know, the hoodie, grab yours, you know what I'm saying, send them back to the manufacturer. And minerals, for some of you who've been asking, courage, power, strength, bravery, all of that means minerals. Power, strength, courage, bravery. You understand? Listen, don't play with me, you get me? Grab your hoodie, you understand? All right. I almost died there. All right, guys, let's get into the actual video. So when we're talking about deeper truth, it means we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to gain the evidence to show you what has actually happened. Now, many of us have heard the stories about Will and Janet and probably didn't know where to start or what's the full reason as to why it happened. And I feel like we've got a good grasp and enough evidence out there to pinpoint to what actually happened. Let me just say this. The most recent ordeal that Will apologized to Janet, I want to make it very clear, I do not believe that Will is solely at fault. I believe he is apologizing majority not just for him. I know he says for him being on a set and being a bit of a dragon, but
level with Janet, I needed mommy to think I was great. And then once I realized that she didn't, my dragon woke up.
I would say majority for being after the set is what you should be apologizing for, not on the set. And the reason why I say that is because of this. The things that were kind of said in interviews and stuff like that after kind of caused this viewpoint of Janet to be created. Yeah, I believe that there's some elements of truth in what she said due to what other cast members have said about her, i.e. Alfonso Ribeiro, what Jeffrey has said, and the way that many people try to dodge the actual conversation, and Will himself obviously, and her own words testifying for her and against her. So I definitely believe that where the apology is dealt and is needed is in the after war. But this is the problem. When you go into war and you go into politics, this can happen. This is a result of politics and war. And the reason why I say politics and war is because when this original situation happened, this is something between two cast members who at the beginning were enamored, cared for each other, loved each other's work, but quickly descended into disillusion, disagreement, and frustration and pain and awkwardness.
Sing, she can dance, she can act, she's brilliant, and she was in the parental figure.
Yes.
Right? So my little boy desperately needed her approval.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And the relationship that they had, which is, as they stated in that video, like almost like a mother and a son.
You still feel like
Like I'm little?
Yeah. Yes.
You still my Aunt Viv. You still my Aunt Viv.
It's so weird. You know, we've said such hateful things about each other.
I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry, too.
Yeah.
Like how he said himself, he viewed her like a mother on the set, just like James Avery, a father. That quickly descended from there to being "you're my mortal enemy." And this is actually a big inclusion or a big idea for us to see why this went the way it went, right? So if we just go from the very beginning and break it all the way down, the show Fresh Prince is about who? About the main character, Will Smith, who is based on a real life character, a real life person, Ben Medina, who was also slightly involved in the show, maybe didn't have as much power, but was involved in the show. And so Will is playing this character who, by the way, Will at this point is a rapper, young rapper, and he's made it, but his finances haven't made it with him. You know what I mean? Like,
at that point in my career, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air really saved my life. Right, so I had a few years in the music business, but I had lost all of my money. I didn't pay taxes. I was in debt to the IRS. I had just flopped an album, you know, and the Fresh Prince represented life.
Right.
Like, as he mentioned himself, he's in debt. You know, some albums flopped. So Fresh Prince is his lifeline. This is key because this gets you to understand mindset. At the point when he starts Fresh Prince is the fresh start that he needed in order to reboot the career financially. Now, I know at the point in time they were actually on tour. Him himself and Jazzy Jeff were on tour, and so that, you know, this is something that came, I want to say, like almost out of the blue, right? It was a saving point for Will Smith. Now, when something becomes your saving point, let me just tell you this now, the mindset is different. When you are about to die and something saves you, the way that you look at that piece of work, information, person, whatever it was that saved you, you have a deep admiration for that thing. And because of that, when you have that deep admiration, when someone begins to question it, question its authenticity, question its actual intentions, questions whether whether it done what it really did do for your life, you can become very, very quickly cagey. Now, remember as well, Fresh Prince, Will Smith is 21. At 21, you may think you know the world, but you don't know the world. And what we saw with Will Smith and Janet is that when trauma is present, and we don't realize we have traumatic experiences, we get triggered by something. I mentioned earlier on that Will and Janet were both, Will saw Janet as a mother. She also in turn saw him like a son. And actually, because this show was a sitcom family, as Will explains to his therapist, that this replicated the whole family setup that he had previously. And in his previous family setup, his original mother and father, he was the jokester and the prankster that prevented his father from abusing his mother. So he couldn't fight his dad. And he, whether you say successfully or unsuccessfully, tried to make his father laugh and appease him so that his mother wouldn't get beaten.
Was violent in my house. So a part of the whole creation of Will Smith, the joking, fun, silly, was to make sure that my father was entertained enough not to hurt my mother or anybody in the house.
Okay.
Right? So that plucks a childhood space of inadequacy. And when someone comes at me like that, the little boy is fully in that space, and I would perform and dance and tell jokes.
Okay. All right.
Right? People laughing and people having fun was my defense mechanism. I realized the other side of it was if I cut you bad enough, you wouldn't be able to respond.
Okay.
He couldn't protect her. And this affects his relationships now, affects his relationships in the past, and will affect undoubtedly the relationship he had with Janet. And I think with Janet at the time, obviously as well, if she can be very honest with herself, there is pride there. There is, I would say, some looking down on someone else. I think there was an elevated sense of personhood in regards to the main character. And the reason why I say that is because out of Janet's own mouth, you know, she said obviously he was young, he was drunk on power, you know what I'm saying? And even Jeffrey himself wading, saying, you know,
the show is called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and the leading actor in the show, the name that comes first is Will Smith.
Correct.
You know, and you know, that's how it is, and that's how it should be. And I feel that perhaps Janet was not able to deal with that.
Will show not the Aunt Viv show, which actually backs up what he said, Will Smith. Jeffrey's own words back up what Will Smith said about at a point in time that, you know, she wants it to be the Aunt Viv show. Now, I don't think she wanted it to be the Aunt Viv show, but what I did think she wanted was a little bit more respect. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, you know, because that's what it means to be. Like, she wanted more R-E-S-P-E-C-T. My spelling's gone off, curse. She wanted that because of the fact that she's older, classically trained, went to Juilliard, you know what I'm saying? And, you know...
Was Juilliard trained.
Yeah.
Janet can sing, she can dance, she can act, she's brilliant.
Maybe she felt like she deserved a bit more broader role. And again, because you may look at someone in a certain way, for instance, you might look at Will and say, this is a rapper. What does he know about acting? And this is where we have to go a little bit deeper. During the case of On the Set, there were some instances that were happening. So with successful people, one of the greatest abilities of a successful person, but also a downfall, I would say, when other people are around, is that successful people can become very quickly controlling. I remember at Man United, a football team in UK, Man United, the manager at one point of Man United, to make them successful, had a hand in everything that happened in the club. He wanted to know everything, be in everything, touch everything. And that made the club so successful, right? And there's another footballer called Ibrahimovic, who is said to be like one of the guys that you listen, you don't want to mess with him, man. But he, like Ronaldo too, expects so much of his teammates. And because of that expectation, he raises the level of his compadres. But he's also annoying because the lack of compassion at times, the lack of empathy at times, the lack of understanding at times, judging someone by your own standards sometimes. And I believe that's the same thing that I think Will suffered from. That, you know, this jovial, happy, exceptional guy who has great comedic timing. This show is about comedy in some sense as well as a family sitcom. It's got that humor element. So, and he had learned and this is the funny thing, he had learned everybody's lines to the point where he was actually reciting their lines on set and had to be told, stop reciting everybody's lines on set, right? And so this is a guy who had now learned these lines, and again, this show is his lifeline. It's his baby, and he started treating the show with that controlling aspect. This is my baby, don't mess it up for me. And so anything that would try to mess it up, because I remember they had formulated a family. I think I watched an interview with Debbie Allen where she said, you know, she fought for Alfonso Ribeiro, and that helped strengthen that family group thinking that they had. Because if you watch the 30-year anniversary, you can tell. And I've been in acting, so I know. I was in acting for we did acting, and I've done theatre kind of things as well, and a little bit on the side. That's probably why my theatrics come through. And on both times that I've done it, the unification of you spending so much time with people, rehearsing lines, knowing the lines, getting to know them, spending time after rehearsals, doing separate rehearsals so you can learn things. Listen, you build bonds that are unbreakable. They're forged in fire. And this show is nothing less of that. Right? And so anything that is going to threaten the family now, and I think this is what happened. What we see is Janet's behavior, and we're going to go deeper into her behavior. Janet's behavior that spilled onto set began to threaten the stabilization of the family to Will.
We felt like when we were doing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that we were a family, and we were really a family. We spent more time with each other than we ever did with any of our other.
And when he saw that the family was being threatened, hey, when I was younger, I couldn't defend my mum. But on this occasion, Janet, you will not touch the family. I will defend it this time, and you got to go. He was threatened. This is what he said to his therapist. He was threatened. And so Janet's behavior, whatever she was suffering with, began to spill onto set, according to...
So we wrote around her pregnancy. But she had a very difficult pregnancy, and she was having a very difficult private life at that time, and it was kind of spilling onto the set.
Because of that then made Will antagonistic, but then also his antagonistic then began to feed into the rest of the cast. right? Because naturally, remember, he has so much control in the sense of the fact that, number one, he's a star main player, and two, as well, his influence that he would have had. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, for Will, there would have been an aspect of this, and this is an aspect that really happened. There would have been an aspect of controllingness that would have happened, because, like I said, he was passing notes. I think at one point he was passing notes or whatever around about, not necessarily about cast members, but maybe saying there's an area of improvement, and I guess that rubbed up certain castmates the wrong way, especially those who are more mature and more advanced, right? Because they will feel like they are further along. And so what can you teach me?
You give notes in a way that nobody else gave notes. And I think that made the other actors a little bit uncomfortable, you know, to have somebody, especially because, again, you're dealing.
And I believe part of that nature of Will being so young and brash and less experienced might have grated Janet in a certain way that when she began to view certain incidents, she would have saw it as this young, gung-ho, naive young man, doesn't know much, trying to teach me something. And I believe there's an element of pride, like I said, for Janet happening in that, right? And so what was interesting is the fact that the dynamics of relationships. So, for instance, the way that Alfonso Ribeiro replied to Janet, the way that I don't believe he's fully healed or fully accepting of Janet like that just yet. And I think the reason why he's not like that is because the relationship he has with Will. So when you talk about friendships, you sometimes look at what kind of man someone's going to, what kind of man someone is. Will, in this scenario of this pond, now let me be very frank, in this pond, in this work pond, yeah, in the film industry, is an alpha male. Okay, and an alpha male, Ribeiro, is a beta male, right? No beef to him. I'm not trying to cuss. I'm just trying to give you the relationship of them two. The beta male, the Robin to the Batman, is someone who is critical and important because he helps prop up the alpha and allows the alpha to do what alpha needs to do, which is lead and become this enigmatic, become this star that he needs, right? And so Alfonso holds the front and holds the base to let the star go as far as it needs to go, right? That's why they play the two against each other. And so Alfonso, the way that he described, even in one of his stand-ups, he was talking about how he had moved house just to be closer to the cast. He had a certain love for the cast and an appreciation for them. He wanted to be even closer to them, right? And not only that, that makes you a certain type of loyalty towards your cast members. Now, if you know about the history between Alfonso and Will, they have a very brotherly love relationship. But again, I talk about the alpha and the beta. The beta will overly be loyal to the alpha. I'm not saying that the alpha doesn't want to be loyal to the beta. I'm just saying that the beta will overly be loyal to the alpha. So anybody challenging the alpha actually challenges the beta. You see this in films all the time, and they take the mick out of it, where it's the friend that's next to the alpha who's getting challenged, or next to the bully, who's the friend of the bully who's sees that his friend is being challenged, the main character, and will stand up for him. Why? Because he has a stronger sense of loyalty to that person. And I believe that's why that Ribeiro could not easily take Janet's, attempt to him at breaking up the family and not allowing the family to flourish so personally.
That's how much we loved each other. And she, at that point, ruined that. And she made it very difficult for us to work. And unfortunately, she was then fired.
Because also, this was a sense of family for Alfonso Ribeiro too. This was his place of being in a family that was maybe not, and especially a lot of us as well, not dysfunctional, but that was loving, that was caring, that was nurturing, that was feeding him, that was helping him grow his career, that was allowing him to do his dream of acting. And there's somebody now who's trying to destroy that image. She's got to be dealt with. And so you hear Alfonso saying that obviously in season 2, he says that woman's cuckoo, but what he's actually saying, what he's over, I don't want to say oversimplifying, but what he's over exaggerating with a cuckoo is that she had a reason to be that way. There were certain things that were going on in her life, but he didn't see it that way. He saw it as, you are trying to break up the team, and for what reason? So you're acting cuckoo to me. You know what I'm saying? But if you hear how Fonzo and Will are close, you will understand why he's taking it that way. Pressing on from that, I think even in their conversation at the end where Janet was making a case for the fact that, you know, Will pretty much ruined her life. I want to also say that I say this again, Will owed her an apology with the way he spoke after she had left the show, because that was a big thing. You talking like that has killed someone's life. That's what the Bible says. Life and death lies in the tongue. And that's why I said sometimes it's not what you do. It's not the fact that you've been slapped. It's what you do after. You could slap back if you wanted to, but the truth of the matter is vengeance is for the Lord, right? And so sometimes we just got to sit back and allow and say, hey, do you know what? I don't like what you did, but I'm going to leave it for the Lord to deal with. And the reason why I say that is because, again, I've been in a youth leadership program, right, where I had to lead some youngsters, and there was somebody who wanted to affect the family, who wanted to break up the family, as I called it. But one thing I always told myself was that I was never going to tell. The leadership came together to discuss this issue, to source out the pain of the issue, and then we had to remove the pain. The Bible says, "Remove the scorner amongst you," right? So there's no problem with removing Janet. But then when we removed that person, I also made it a choice to not speak about why she or he had been removed from the process. And the reason why is because, again, it's for leadership to know, but not for everyone to know, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to protect your image and your reputation. If somebody else hears me speak about it, they may have a tarnished view of you. I don't want to do that. Even when the person was saying things and tarnishing my reputation, I decided I'm not going to follow suit. Because if I follow suit, I'm going to cause you pain in the long run. I can see longer than you, right? I can see further than you because I'm not in pain like you are. So I'm going to see further and say, I'm not going to say anything because I want you to flourish later on. I don't want your name to be tarnished, associated with something like that. Right? And unfortunately, that didn't happen with Will and Janet. And the reason why is because he was so young and he's seen that, and so young and so enamored by his position of power and enamored by the position that he'd been put into and the fact that it was his lifeline. You were taking away not just his, his family, but the livelihood as well. This was his way out. You know what I mean? Like, he was doing things that no one else had done from his area, almost in a sense. Right, but we do know that Will had, like I said, the control issues. He had a as Winifred, I think there was a director. She said, obviously, or executive. She said that at a point, Will had his posse on.
His posse also wanted to have a say, and the network was like, "No, you have to fight them." And Quincy Jones, who was the production company,
and they were trying to accumulate power to direct and push the show in a certain direction. They had their own mindset. So Will clearly had issues too. There were issues on set where he was, I would say that obviously from hearing from Janet's point of view is that, the loud music, for her unprofessionalism, because way that she's been trained and the way she's thought about how to get herself into a mode, it wasn't through the way that he's understood it. But because it's his show, again, a clash of ideologies, and unfortunately, the person who's the lead is always going to have the final say, it seems, right? Because the show is around that character. And again, I think Janet couldn't necessarily fully compute that and deep it as well. And so with mother and son, with Janet and Will, because of his issues that he had at his actual family, Will was replicating the behaviors of his family in the show. And so you see him recognize that when he's talking to his therapist, right? And so that what was interesting is that as the process of time is going on and Janet is now being pushed out of the show, so it seems, there was no reconciliation there, because the whole issue that we're talking about here is about money. I'm just breaking down the whole relationship of different thoughts. But the issue here was the fact that at the point in time, Janet was suffering at home, right? The home was abusive. And so when your home is abusive and your workplace becomes your sanctuary and the workplace no longer becomes that sanctuary, you can feel like you're in limbo. There's nowhere safe. Suddenly, your home was the safety. It's no longer safe. You come to work. It's no longer your safety either. And I think this is where we need to hold Janet to account. I think she was where she needs to hold herself to account and be very honest about her own behavior. On several testimonies, You've come into work and you're in a different disposition.
And there were days when we were on the set and she would literally go off on people, and it got to a point by the time the second season came around where we're like...
Your attitude to work, not that you weren't professional, but your attitude bringing energy to the floor. Because at the end of the day, I've been in situations where you're trying to be creative and the person's bringing a negative attitude. Well, you're killing everybody's mood. And now you're becoming problematic, because now the mood is important to get us to a place and a mindset to get us to act in a certain way. And you're now killing that safety of good vibes and stuff, right? And I'm sure that Will felt threatened by the fact that she's killing those vibes, right? And this wasn't an instant decision; it was over time, which means, and as Winifred said herself, what she was suffering with at home, the pregnancy that was a very bad pregnancy as well, was beginning to impact her life and impact her on set. Which means this is over a process of time, she become some type of way.
But she had a very difficult pregnancy, and she was having a very difficult private life at that time. And it was kind of spilling onto the set. And
trust me, this director was also harsh on Will. So she's not on one side only. So that let us know that, okay, so there is a truth that she was difficult on set. No, sis, no. We can't pretend as if, because I know you've been done wrong, that as if you didn't do anything wrong. Because evidently you were difficult on set at some point. Now, you may say because your life was difficult at home and you wanted a safe space where someone can understand you. But remember, you were playing the mum to the son. So are you expecting the son now to understand what the mother's going through? Or should the mother explain to the son what's going on? Because...
Thank you for sharing that with me. That's new information for me. Like, I didn't know that.
Because you as a mother, Janet, here, in a sense, you said yourself, nobody knew what you're going through. You didn't tell anybody. You didn't trust anybody. Therefore, when you're coming into work and acting all mad, remember, it's a professional place. As well as a family, it's still a professional place where we're trying to earn bread, be the best show we can be, and keep the family healthy. And when you bring in your energy and bad vibes, because of what you've gone through, you're going to cause people to react a certain type of way towards you. Now, they should really understand you because they've known you for a little while. But the truth of the matter is, if you've been doing it for a sustained period of time, you won't discuss and be open about it. Now, I think the executive knew, Winifred knew a little bit, but we didn't know the full depth of it.
Out on the stage, and I wasn't unprofessional on the set. I just stopped talking to everybody because I didn't know who to trust. And the whole negotiation thing was messed up.
Yeah.
You guys offered me something I had to turn down. And I was like, why?
Absolutely. And
therefore, they have no point of reference to say, hey, actually, no, she's going through some things, because you weren't open about it. Do you see what I'm saying? So now you're expecting them to offer you this, and then obviously, I think it's accumulation of things. Your husband's abusive at the time. You know, you got a mortgage over your neck. You know, your hours have been cut down. Your finances have been cut down. On top of that, I think in the contract, which was really sly, I think, by the executives, is that she couldn't work anywhere at the same time. So it was like, okay, you're cutting down my hours, but now you're saying I can't work anywhere at the time. Even though Winifred said that the reason why they cut her hours down was simply because health reasons, number one, and two, I guess also to protect the image of the company, because you don't want a pregnant woman fainting, falling, feeling sick on the show and it being a scandal, right?
And so I sat down with the actors and I decided that I was going to limit her time on the set, because not only for her own health, but also kind of for the peace of mind of the rest of the company.
Right? But that's what the director was saying, that it's protect the company as well, okay? As well as trying to protect the health of Janet. I think obviously the way it happened though is what the problem is. It's the process, how it got there. Cast that decided, with Will's obviously autonomy on that, decided that Janet couldn't do the show no more. And the way that the director kind of mentioned it was about the fact that, the executive said it also in a sense was.
And so I sat down with the actors and I decided that I was going to limit her time on the set because not only for her own health.
They had a conversation. She sat down and have a conversation with all the cast. It got to a point and they realized, okay, cool, Janet's going to have to go.
Will was asking me, what do I think? Should Janet leave? Should he get rid of her? Should he support her? And I said, you know.
And so we get a different perspective on the ground now from Jeffrey, who gets a call from James Avery, but also gets a call from Will and Janet. And I think this is really a key piece of information that is deeper truth that we're talking about here.
I got a call from Will, and I got a call from James Avery, and I got a call from Janet. And Will was asking me, what do I think?
As he gets this call from Will, Will's explaining, saying, listen, look, Janet is becoming unmanageable at this point. Like, what do you think? So, okay, that instantly puts a different spin on it, because now that means there is deliberation, period of time. Okay, it wasn't an instant click. It's not me being a prick one day and this exit ending your career. Is a piece of time. Okay, and so Jeffrey, in his respectfulest manner, said, "I'm not going to cut her at the legs. Look, whatever you want to do, you want to do. You're the star of the show, but you know, just have a conversation with Janet.
Speak to Janet. You must sit her down, and the two of you, you know, iron out your differences and come to a point of reconciliation."
Janet's been offered a deal. Okay, and she calls you know, Jeffrey, and she has a conversation around the fact that, you know, about this issue about the contract, and he mentions to her, listen, hey, look, do not make this a political impasse. Yeah, and I want to kind of broaden what that means. Yes, there could have been an issue around her dark skin and them offering her not so much. There could have been, right? And more than likely probably is. Probably true. But don't make it political. What does that mean? Get personal. Doesn't mean attack them. It does not mean, you know, set them alight. What it means is, I'm going to say, what it means is that you discuss the actual issue that's haunting you, right? And he said, if you want more money, ask more money. If you feel it's the money situation, ask for it. Like, they're giving you less hours, but maybe you want to say, listen, look, guys, my situation at the moment is that, look, home is not good. I need finances to cover these bills.
You can't work anywhere else?
I didn't know specifically what the offer was.
10 weeks.
And I knew that
2
you had
months.
turned down the offer.
How do you survive with a mortgage and a new business and a new baby and a husband who wasn't working at the time? Mm-hmm. How do you survive? Yeah. So much of what you said just destroyed, and everywhere I went, everybody just beat me up.
Was that ever stated? Because it seems like Will never understood that point. He never heard that point. He never got that point. He only got the point, which means that conversation where Will and her were meant to sit down and have a conversation, it probably never happened then. It never really took place, because otherwise there would have been some established truths here. Right? So now Jeffrey's saying that, obviously, at the same time, look, he's telling her, listen, don't make it a political impasse, meaning basically don't make it a polarized issue. Deal with the actual issue, and you need more money. That's it. The contract's not enough. And then we get this information, which is that not only did she, you know, reject the contract which was given to her, and Will called Jeffrey and said, listen, she rejected the contract, There was a time limit on the contract time of when her to accept it or not, right? And maybe she felt like she was being frozen out, being treated badly because of her relationship with Will, more than likely.
You have to look at it the way it's set up. It's Will's show, you know, yeah, and he's. Let's
be honest. You know, she upset the star player, and we see this all the time. You upset the star player, and this is what happens. See, and that's to do with not just being dark skinned. That's also to do with the fact the dynamics of male and women. That's to do with the dynamics of the fact that how it works with popularity. It just is. Sometimes a star player can get away with stuff that you can never get with. It's just like school. Certain members of the public classroom of your particular class can get away with stuff that you would never get away with. It's just them. But you have to understand your lane. And so when she made a stand to not accept the contract, I believe that it was a case of, listen, you're going to pay me more. Like, I refuse to back down. But at that point, it became a political impasse rather than being about the fact that I needed more finances, because it was less of a renegotiation and more of a rejection.
I'll give you more money. You know, just don't create a political impasse that, you know, in the end you are the one who's going to suffer.
Right? And I feel that's where pride gets in. And then there's a time limit. And at the breach of the time limit, she wanted to go back. So listen, hey, hold on a minute. This is a good piece of information. She didn't decide it. Actually, I want to accept the deal now. When she realized she had nowhere to turn, I want to accept the deal, which I feel like you tried to maybe play a card to try and get them to fold, and didn't fold. They get someone else. Maybe you thought you were very important to the show and maybe too important to be replaced. But the thing is, just like Jeffrey and James Avery have all trained on the theatre production, there is always a second and third person waiting for you to mess up. If you decide not to work, there is somebody else. There's an understudy. Don't play with it. Right? And so this is why it's important to understand to never overshoot your importance. And this is why I said to you, listen, the story of Esther and Vashti in the Bible is so quintessential. Character keeps you in the room. The Bible says our gifts and that your gifts and talents will make room for you before kings and queens. What keeps you in that room, consistently building a relationship with kings and queens, is your character. How do you handle them? How do you treat them? How do you get along with them? You understand? When you're challenging the main star, yeah, you're causing conflict that the whole cast is feeling, you know? And so when she went back, I really realized, okay, cool. She tried to make a move. It didn't work out. They moved on without her, you know? And so what I saw in the end scene was that it almost felt as if like she was blaming him for the bad life that she lived. Listen, your home life at the time was nothing to do with Will. What happened there, some of the behavior on the set, I agree, he definitely made your life much harder than it needed to be, right? And now he's had kids, he understands it. But you've got to take responsibility for your actions here and say, hey, actually, do you know what? I've actually contributed towards this, you know? You know, I know that she also said as well, and I think James Avery probably made a point as well earlier as well, is that they wanted a more professional set. This is not, this is what, Jeffrey and her were kind of alluding to, which is that they grew up on a set where they would be more professional, right? They grew up in a place where there'd be more time to think and time to get yourself in character, nobody distracting you. In fact, Jeffrey even said at one point,
and dealing with dialogue and all that kind of stuff, there were things that you had to do to keep on track. And I mean, if somebody's kind of,
there would be nobody trying to distract you by saying words like quietly, and that was kind of a shot at Will, wasn't it? So there obviously was a different environment to what they normally used to, but don't make it a political impasse, you know, don't make it that political impasse. So in a sense, yes, I believe he killed her career with some of the things he said after, but actually we should have never got here. If you've got a relationship with your son, which is Will, and I'm saying that in the loose terms, there should have been a conversation. Don't let pride take you to a place where you think you're better and you can't have that conversation. Because how could there have not been a conversation for 30 years about what you were going through? How is it nobody knew what you were going through in truth? How can that be, since you are family and you see yourself as the mother of Will in a sense of like the way he describes, right? Surely there should have been time to discuss. And I know that she felt some way because obviously she always describes the fact that, you know, he was power hungry. And I'm like, sis, you know, I would say, listen, again, we're talking about deeper truth. And the deeper truth here is that both Will and Janet have parts to play. His behavior on set where he was not unaccommodating was not helpful. It was detrimental. And her turning up to work and sometimes being on an off day was also not beneficial for the team, because then they got to work and you're now dampening the day with your behavior, how you feel. And so unfortunately they came to an impasse and she had to leave, you know. And so what I would say for anybody on this is that, listen, let's listen to this. Look, it took 30 years for them to get back together. But what would have happened in the beginning if they had spoken face to face and said, hey, look, this is actually what I mean? Because sometimes what we're doing is we're not listening to understand, we're listening to reply. And we don't take time to hear the person's full truth in its entirety. And so now what we do is we make our assumptions based on the soundbite that we heard from them, rather than waiting for them to finish and then replying. And it's easy to do that because once we're frustrated or hurt or we feel like we're being triggered, we can easily speak out of turn. But we've got to allow that person to finish, explain their truth, and then deal with them. Yeah? And so, yeah, I see that. I see that there was issues on both sides, and you know there was a lot of footage that spoke to both their characters. But you know, I think, guys, if you understand the movie sets and the TV sets, that there's a lot of politics at the top, but it's also politics on the floor as well, because people are competitive by nature. They want to win. They want to be the biggest, the baddest, and the best. You know what I mean? So yeah, guys, you know, I wanna leave it there and say, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and you click on the bell button for more content like this. You want to see more content like this? Click on the link below. There's also a Patreon, guys. Please, if you can, support us on Patreon. You know, just pay. You know, you can see the link. Click on the link, and you can support us from there as well, because we really appreciate you guys. But yeah, guys, make sure you stay locked, stay loaded. We appreciate you, and enjoy your evening. Appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded.